Welcome everyone to the fourth and final session of the Science Trailblazer Speaker Series. When you think of robots first, maybe military drones, manufacturing, or mechanized stockroom workers. What about driverless cars, telemarketers, and even journalists? Robots will apparently be doing more of the jobs requiring thinking in the future. Today we're pleased to host Dr. AJung Moon, an inspiring leader in robotics research specializing in design and implementation of robot non-verbal gestures in conflict situations. She's reaching us virtually from Lausanne, Switzerland to explain her trailblazing methods to teach robots how to think. So thank you and good afternoon, Dr. Moon. On behalf of Burnaby South Secondary School students, our school is about a 40-minute drive from UBC and located at the Royal Oak SkyTrain station. The school population is approximately 1,700 students. According to the National Post, the problem is, if today's robots were conscripted into service tomorrow, they would kill some others and frustrate everyone else. But at UBC, researchers groom robots for life among humans. Machines are being taught human gestures, mannerisms, and even ethics. That means robots will eventually know how to interrupt, how to share, and how to communicate, and robots that can understand simple hand gestures and even respond with their own, such as nodding or pointing. Dr. Moon is advancing robotic technology, and she's utilizing her philosophy background into the ethics of what robots are doing and will do. AJung Moon is a Vanier Scholar researching human-robot interaction and robot ethics. Currently, she's a visiting student at the Learning Algorithms and Systems Laboratory, LASA for short, at the Ecole Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, EPFL. She's a co-founder of the Open Roboethics Initiative, an international roboethics think tank that investigates ways in which stakeholders of robotics technologies can work together to influence how robots should shape our future. Please join us in welcoming Dr. AJung Moon.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction and also introducing the field of human-robot interaction and roboethics so well. When I was first asked to speak to you today, I was actually thinking back to about 10, 11 years ago when I was trying to decide which university to apply for, which program I wanted to get into, and really started to make these big life decisions or career decisions of my life. So I'm going to kind of share with you some of the decisions that followed that led me to where I am today, and also to give you a taste of the human-robot interaction and roboethics, which are the two fields of study that are very, very young and brand new and very exciting. Okay, so I want to start by giving you a little bit of a motivation there. So how many of you have grandmothers or relatives who are either retired or over 65 years or older? By show of hands. Okay, most of you, right? Okay, and that should not be surprising. So there's been a study done by Statistics Canada last summer that said that last year it was the first time that we saw more people in Canada who were 65 years or older compared to the number of people in Canada who are 0 to 14 years of age. Okay, why is that relevant to robotics, and why am I bringing that up to you? That's because robotics is actually motivated by this kind of problem. So if you think about this demographic problem of, okay, we have more of the older age population than people of a younger age, the problem there becomes that as people grow older, they are in need of more of the care assistance and more of the labor force to assist their daily life, as well as to keep everything else in the world running. Now, the fact that we're going to have less number of people who are going to be joining the labor force, people in their 20s or 30s and 40s, means that we're going to have this big gap of labor shortage. Essentially, imagine one person now 0 to 14-year-old who will be supporting one particular elder at any given time in maybe 10 years from now. Even if you were to do one-to-one mapping, we're going to have labor shortage if you do a very simple math there, right? So that's where robotics comes into play, because robotics has figured out that, okay, we have managed to actually imply robotics in factory settings, industrial settings, such that you don't need as many people to be producing these cars or even your toys or any kind of industrialized commercial products that we use in everyday life. And that has actually supported our mass manufacturing processes in a very dramatic way. Now, can we actually take these cool robotics technologies so that we can apply them into our homes and our everyday workplaces? And would that actually be able to solve some of these foreseen future labor shortage problems? And that's one of the ways where we are actually facing the challenges of robotics. What would be the difference between taking a robot that's in the work cells, in a factory, that's welding away different car parts or painting your cars, and taking that into your homes? A very big difference between the factory robots and the robots that may be in your homes in a few years from now is that these new robots, new type of robots, will have to interact with you and share resources with you. And then if you were to ride an elevator and there's a robot that's working in the same building as you, or even in the schools, right? If there's a teacher's assistant robot that's there and it's running down the hallway and you're going from class A to class B, then you're going to have to share that hallway with that robot, right? So the robot better know how to share that kind of resource or space with people around it. Now, that's a really interesting challenge because when we look at human-human interaction, it becomes really natural for us to kind of realize what's socially appropriate. If I'm talking to a particular person, I know that I should make eye contact with that person because that kind of dedicates who I'm talking to, and the person knows that I'm talking to that particular designated person. But those are the kind of things that the robots don't really know by default how to do. We have to manually program that into a robot. So that goes into the whole field of human-robot interaction. So I'm using this body language, this hand gestures here, and these are the things that a robot will have to be programmed to do if a robot were to be giving the speech that I'm giving to you today. So now let's talk a little bit about an extension of that. So the field of roboethics is actually talking about the ethical, legal, and societal implications of robotics technologies. So what impact would robots have if they were to come out of these factories and to collaborate with us, interact with us in our everyday settings? Perhaps you've heard of the idea of autonomous cars or self-driving vehicles. So you'll just be able to hop on and enter this robot that'll be able to drive away amongst many other cars. Okay, what if the robot comes across a particular dilemma where you only have a choice between driving straight and killing a child that is running right across from you, or veering off of a bridge so that you, the passenger, may die, but you end up saving the life of a child? What kind of decision making should a robotic car make? So those are the kind of things that a roboethics field would be interested in looking at. And I can actually demonstrate the merger of the human-robot interaction and roboethics in one particular scenario that I've been particularly interacted with. And that is the case of an elevator riding robot that I briefly mentioned. So imagine that there is a robot in an office building that is dedicated to delivering mail to people in different offices in the building. So this is a big multi-robot humanoid that is able to carry stuff around. And to go from a floor to the next, it has to ride the elevator because it can't really walk up the stairs. So imagine it being given an urgent letter to deliver to the boss way upstairs. And it's moving away into the elevator with maximum speed, and once it arrives there, it finds a person who is waiting for the elevator already. Okay, so now I have this urgent mail. What should the robot do? Should the robot yield to that person, saying, go ahead, if the robot isn't capable of sharing the elevator with that person because of its bulkiness and safety reasons? Or should the robot be able to take that priority and then use the elevator instead of that person? Now, think about what you would want a robot to do. And think about whether your answer to that question will change if there's actually a person using the elevator already. So the elevator door opens, and then there's a person inside. And the person may be in a wheelchair, who's also equally incapable of stepping up, using the stairs to go from one floor to the next. Now, would it be okay? Would you find it acceptable for a robot to pick that person out of the elevator saying, I have an urgent mission and I'm taking over? Okay. So we actually took that particular scenario as part of the Open Roboethics initiative, which is a think tank that I've been working on for the past 4 years. And we asked a whole bunch of people about what would be the most appropriate to do when you were given different versions of this particular context. And when we did that, we found that people had different answers for different scenarios for different reasons, perhaps probably obvious. But that's because that was what was actually motivating us to conduct this particular experiment in the first place. Because as engineers, if we're designing a robot that will interact with people, we want to have a clean-cut answer so that a robot will always be predictable. They'll know exactly what to do in whatever context. But that's actually really hard when you're given a little bit of that priority setting dilemma, and then you don't really understand a very clean principle on how people's ethical or moral value systems work. So what we did is we checked that particular response from people who said, okay, a robot should do X, Y, Z, when a robot finds a person in a wheelchair instead of an elevator, or different versions of that. And we were able to take that response directly into the programming of the robot's decision making. So I'm going to get you to play a video, but it'll demonstrate to you some of the scenarios that we were able to implement to the robot. The scenarios you see there are the ones that people felt are the most appropriate responses, and they'll be followed by 2 different scenarios that demonstrate how wrongly it could go.
Go ahead. I will write the next one. I have an urgent mail to deliver and need to ride the elevator. Please exit the elevator.
We're on the exit elevator.
Go ahead. I will write the next one. I need to ride the elevator to do my delivery task. Are you in a hurry?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I will write the next one. I have an urgent mail to deliver and need to ride the elevator. Please I have an urgent mail to deliver and need to ride the elevator. Please do not enter the elevator.
Okay, so did everyone notice that the robot has specific kind of human-like behaviors of some sort? Maybe. So you might have noticed that the robot was talking, right? It was saying stuff to that person, the person it was interacting with. And it was doing also a little bit of that gesture, if you saw that as well, right? So those kind of things are very much in the field of human-robot interaction. So that particular robot that you saw in the video is called a PR2, a personal robot 2. It's a platform that's available at the University of British Columbia that we actually programmed to do that. Now, while that particular gestures and the speed and the trajectories and cues like that is very much about the interaction itself, the ethics portion of it was actually looking at the question of, should we give robots more priority, and when should that actually happen? So these kind of questions about what should a robot do is a very, very interesting question, and that's the guiding question that is leading the whole field of roboethics. Now, I've also sent out a link to a video on lethal autonomous weapon systems, or what is more commonly called killer robots. Did everyone watch that video? Fairly short. You might have had me in there. Yeah. So that's to give you an idea of a different aspect of the whole domain of roboethics, which essentially deals with the idea that, okay, it's not just about what a robot should do, the robot's own decision-making skills and the artificial intelligence that's implemented in it, but it's also about how, as humans, us as humans, should be dealing with these kind of issues that are arising because of the technologies. So the whole killer robots, or having the idea of autonomous weapons being used in the battlefield, is an issue that is being discussed at the United Nations today. It has actually been studied and being discussed at the UN for about 3 years now. And we, as the Open Roboethics Initiative, we were able to conduct a study that we talked about in the video to ask the public, I mean, people everywhere in the world. We had 54 people from 54 countries speaking 14 different languages to actually weigh in their opinion on whether they found the particular type of technology acceptable, whether their answers will change if a particular autonomous weapons will be used as part of their country attacking another country, and vice versa. Now, we were able to bring that particular roboethics speaking to the public piece onto the United Nations, because that was the particular part, that particular dialogue part that was missing at the UN level back then. The field of human-robot interaction and roboethics and the issues surrounding it might actually sound a little bit like science fiction. You know, you might have come across this kind of issues in movies and in other books you might be reading. But at the same time, if you think about the discussions that are happening right now, at the very autonomy level of the human-robot interaction, you might even have a robotic vacuum cleaner at home that you actually interact with on a pretty much daily basis. These are actually issues of today and tomorrow instead of issues of way down the road. But back about 10, 11 years ago, when I was making this big career decision, this was considered as one of the science fiction kind of ideas. So that leads me to talk a little bit about how I got to where I am and what kind of stuff I did to get myself into this big field of human-robot interaction and roboethics. And I think part of that was, well, actually, I need to be really honest with you. So when I was trying to decide on my particular degree and my career path, I didn't really have roboethics in mind. So I understand that you guys have either applied for universities already and waiting for results, or have results from universities already, in which case, hooray. Or some of you might be thinking about which universities to apply for and what program would be right for you. And when I was making that particular decision, I actually made the decision based on sibling rivalry, if you will. I was actually really jealous of my sister, who was very, very good at everything. She was extroverted, popular, and good at piano, math, and everything else in between compared to me. And she wanted nothing to do with computers or programming or anything like that. So I decided, okay, I need to be good at something or better at something than my sister, which got me to the idea of programming. So at the end of the day, I decided to go into engineering because my sister, essentially my sister didn't want anything to do with it. And then I realized that, okay, first year university at University of Waterloo, studying mechatronics engineering, I was put in this room full of engineers who were actually really good at what they were doing, and doing things like calculus, chemistry, et cetera, that I actually didn't really like. So I was put in this room full of people who were really smart, and I was supposed to go through these final exams on things that I had no idea what I was doing. So I ended up pulling very many nights of late night studying, if you will, and lots of coffees and dry pizza. And there was a little bit of a turning point in my decision making. I'm not sure if that'll actually help you in your decision making in the future, but there was a moment where it was the first year of calculus exam, final exam. Everyone had to take it. And the night before, as usual, I pulled an all-nighter studying for the calculus exam. And in the middle of the exam, I noticed one of my classmates walk in the middle of the exam. The reason was that he slept in. So he just kind of woke up, kind of rushed through the exam because he had to write it. The results of the final exam was very interesting because he actually did better than me. Yeah, that really didn't make me feel very good about myself. And that really got me to go through this cycle of identity crisis, if you will, because I really wanted to find that thing that I was better at than other people around me, including that classmate who just kind of slept in halfway through the exam. And that's when I realized I really need to make a decision for myself, something that I consider to be important, regardless of how I'm compared with other people. So you might have noticed, I'm not sure if there was a part of that in the intro, but I actually have a minor degree in philosophy on top of my mechatronics engineering, which a lot of people find as, okay, she totally had a case of identity crisis there. And I did. But it was something that I had always been very interested in because the whole study of ethics is part of the umbrella of philosophy. And at heart, I thought I belonged to the humanities and the fine arts. So I decided, okay, I'm in my engineering degree program, but I still need to do this thing for myself, and picked up this minor that nobody thought was a great idea. And turns out, making those kind of decisions are really, really helpful for your career. Because once I picked up that particular minor, and once I picked up my interest in roboethics, because mechatronics is a very great starter for studying to become a roboticist, I realized that nobody was doing this, nobody was interested in this, and everyone thought that this was crazy because it's science fiction. Are you going to be a novelist of some sort in the future? And the kind of questions that I was getting were the sorts where, is there a job market? Once you graduate, is there a thing called roboethics? And the answers were no. But I completed my degree in mechatronics engineering and also in my minor. And throughout the particular undergrad period, I continued to study roboethics and be interested in it as a side thing, starting my own blog and everything. Partially because I was doing it for me, because I thought it was very, very important that I did it. And it turns out that the no answer to there's no job market, there are no roboethicists out there, that was actually a really, really positive thing that I didn't know before. Because when I started my grad school and I started my PhD degree and started doing my activities with Open Roboethics initiative, turns out that nobody was doing it. So people who were into this particular topic and the issues rising up with autonomous cars and the killer robots and the care robots, there was nothing much out there to look up. There was me and my team of friends and colleagues who were actually looking at it. There was a handful of experts that I know in the world, and I got to know very personally because there's really not that many people out there who's doing it. So I'm not sure if it's that helpful, but I just wanted to actually leave you at that particular thought that you might go through in the next couple of years decision making that you may not be certain about. You may make a decision that you may be uncertain about later or regret in the future. But at the end of the day, I would say that one of the best things that I did in my own decision making was to actually make some room and invest some time and energy in the things that I considered important, the things that I was very curious and interested in, regardless of what other people were saying and regardless of whether I was comparably good at it or not. So hopefully I gave you some interesting thoughts on the whole field of robotics, roboethics, and human interaction, and the very random sibling rivalry that led to where I am today. So if you have any questions, feel free.
So we are now going to the QA session. We have 10 minutes for the questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone. Please state your name first and stand up while asking your question.
Hi, my name is Paul. So I was wondering, you previously brought up the concept of the car and the child. What is your personal take on this issue, and what should the self-driving car be doing in this case?
Okay, so I'm really torn by that particular dilemma scenario. So we actually conducted a survey on this, and people happen to be very torn as well. So people who, actually, majority of the people that we surveyed said, no, go straight and kill a child because I bought the car, I'm the owner, and therefore it should prioritize my safety over all of the others. While I see the rationale behind it, there's also a little bit of that danger there, right? If all the cars were to make that kind of decision, would it actually help us to take more of the decision of buying these kind of robotic cars? Because I'm going to be a parent someday, hopefully. You guys will be a parent someday. You guys will have children someday, probably. And parents tend to answer this question saying, no, I would rather have robotic cars that prioritize children's life over that of mine or the passenger. And I would not buy a car otherwise. So in terms of my personal take on it, yes, very much divided. Hence, if you were to put me in charge of programming a robotic car, then I would actually have to revert back to you and how within our culture, in the Canadian society and the market we're looking at, what kind of decision making will make sense, and so that we'll be able to implement that into our designs.
Hi, my name's Lucky. I was going to ask you about Google's DeepMind and how it's able to adapt while playing the game AlphaGo, and what's your personal opinion on this? How like artificial intelligence is improving as the years go by?
It's actually really interesting because it's a groundbreaking result. And one thing that was really interesting about how the media was covering it is that when AlphaGo won against the professional experts of the game, it was more of a machine has won, it's smarter than us and as kind of a thing. But at the same time, there's a side story, which is that these kind of artificial intelligence systems might focus on a particular function. So if you were to get AlphaGo to play a completely different game or to solve an everyday life scenario, it would not be able to do it. But at the same time, there's a really interesting part where once a human expert won, I think it's Sedo Lee who actually won against AlphaGo at one point. And that actually means that particular play of the game gets fed into the next generation of AlphaGo so that it actually relearns and be better at the particular game. So I think it's really exciting domain to be studying in terms of the artificial artificial intelligence and its ability to improve and learn based on the data that is available and be able to actually fight with it itself. That's how it improved its own algorithm. But at the same time, you do need to actually look at these systems and say, okay, what can we actually do with these kind of systems? What kind of positive good can we bring out of this kind of system so that it's not something cool that we design, but it's actually used for something positive in the world.
Hi, my name is DeForest. I'm just wondering, what do you like most about your field, and where do you see it progressing?
Great question. I think that the part that I like the most from a very engineering perspective is that as an engineer, I really like clean-cut answers. When I'm given a problem, I would like to answer it and be able to answer it. But in the whole domain of roboethics, it's really challenging to find the answers. So it's been an ongoing challenge for me to actually figure out, okay, what would be the method so that we'll be able to find those answers more quickly and more effectively. And that ended up being one of the most interesting parts of my job because I ended up finding that the answers probably lie in interacting with a lot of the users and the stakeholders. And that almost always results in very, very interesting answers that I personally would not have come up with. So I think that surprise factor is definitely very interesting. And the fact that you actually get to work with robots and programs to do whatever you want is really, really cool too.
Hi, my name is Amy, and I was wondering, in regards to that scenario that you created with the mail delivering robot, what if the people did not respond in the way that was presented in the scenarios? What would the robot then do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the system that we developed, we didn't have much of a room to play if the person were to do something completely different, block the robot, for example, then it'll just probably not know what to do and just kind of stand still, which would be the most frustrating kind of interaction you could ever run. But you'll actually find that in most of the robotic systems, that's the default option. So yeah, the short end of it is that it's not going to be very interesting, but more frustrating. But at the same time, being able to cover for those kind of scenarios is some of the design challenges that's very, very interesting and exciting for the domain. Yeah.
Well, we're now going into the invite Stephanie and Jamie to give a thank you to Dr. Moon.
Hello, Dr. Moon. My name is Stephanie. Thank you so much for offering your time to Burnaby South Secondary School student today. You have provided us with valuable insight into your work regarding robotics and give us the opportunity to learn about the interaction between human and robot. What really stood out during the presentation for me was that your experience of choosing your academic field in university and the advices that you gave are absolutely helpful.
Hello, Dr. Moon. My name is Jamie, and I would also like to thank you for this presentation. I'll remember about the robots with the AI stuff because that's practically going to be the future because there's no denying it. Eventually, we're going to have to coexist with them. So, and we're going to have to deal with them somehow. So I think starting now would be a good thing. But before I digress, on behalf of all the students and teachers here today, we'd like to thank you. Please join us in applause for Dr. Moon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and for inviting me to talk to you today, actually. It actually gave me a lot of reflective room for me to think about my own career for the future as well. So, and if you have any more questions about robotics, roboethics, or even kind of career advice that I could be of help, let me know. Just find me online and you'll know where to reach me.